watched a lot of Bob Hoskins films, who I love. He's one of my heroes anyway. So it was great to kind of watch and not base my character on him, but allow that to soak into my psyche. Do you know what I mean?
You go there and think, I want these people to build my house for me, because they just do an amazing job. And you walk into a time machine, basically.
It was on that day that I was like, oh, you really want me to go there?
I'd matter if you were raised here, or you just got here. You learn to fight, or this city will swallow you whole.
From the get-go, you're really invested in these characters, and I wanted to know, what was it that spoke to you about each of your individual characters?
I liked his reservedness, his quiet intelligence, you know. That's something that stood out to me that is, I found, like, rare to come across, is that he has a very quiet intelligence and he has a strength, but it's not an outward bravado, you know. He's able to take someone down, but he doesn't lead with that. Yeah, so I guess his humility, that felt special.
Yeah.
For me, it was probably Mary's honesty, like honesty in all senses of, I think she just was who she was and she was unapologetic about that, and whoever she was in front of, there's no filter. She will say what she needs to say to get where she needs to be, and there's something about completely embodying that personality trait as a woman, which is so rare, and I just relished every moment. Yes, it's so freeing to be that person who just says what they thinks, yeah, that was pretty special. Yeah.
For me, it was kind of, he's the opposite to me, totally. Do you know what I mean? I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm kind of, to play a man who was very stoic, but also a man of few words, and the physical aspect of him. Do you know what I mean? For me, was that kind of challenge. So for me, it was, trying to find a way in to play that kind of archetypal man that I've seen on the telly and things when I was growing up as a kid. Do you know what I mean? That you don't see that much of anymore. So for me, that was what really drew me in.
Yeah.
That kind of challenge of playing that kind of role for me.
What was your way into that?
The physical aspect of it was the big starting point for me. Was a big help. Do you know what I mean? That whole kind of, I knew I was doing this 6 months before I started, so it was getting into that physical condition, which was like eating loads of food and training 5 days a week. It was, but it's not easy as you think. Do you know what I mean? Eating 5 proper meals a day. Do you know what I mean? But it was all completely managed, and I had a wonderful trainer and nutritionist, Rob, who was fantastic, and I had a great boxing coach, Graham, who really helped me. Do you know what I mean? So I was doing like 5 days a week, 2 days rest, 5 days a week, weightlifting and stuff, and then 3 days boxing, so I could get that kind of physical aspect of it. And then for me, it was finding the inner life of him. And I watched a lot of Bob Hoskins films, who I love. He's one of my heroes anyway. So it was great to kind of watch and not base my character on him, but allow that to soak into my psyche. Do you know what I mean? And Ray Winston as well, who I think is a wonderful actor. So trying to play them kind of men that I've seen before, and bring them to life again, because we don't really see fellas like that, you know what I mean, on screen, and just add my own flavour to it, really. So they were my big inspirations.
I've got to ask about that boxing scene in episode 2, because that was brutal. How was it choreographed, and was there a lot of rehearsing for you two to do? He says yes.
Yes, there was, and honestly, I loved every second of it. You know, I would have got a whole lot more if we had the time. But yeah, there was a lot of rehearsing, and like you said before, like it was kind of like a dance. Do you know what I mean? The choreography of it, and that, it was necessary. And I think also part of the rehearsal process was, for me, building trust. Because we can have all the moves, but if we don't trust each other to not hit each other, then it kind of just goes out the window and looks false. Do you know what I mean? So as much as you were rehearsing the moves, it was also about building that trust together, which I think just aided the show as well, you know, because I feel like it translates, hopefully.
So I have to ask, where did the inspiration behind this story come from? And can you talk to me about the writing process and bringing on board other contributors?
Yeah, Stephen Graham contacted me with the idea of the Hezekiah Moscow. story, the story of two friends who come to London from Jamaica in the 1880s, and the hero Hezekiah, with a desire to become a lion tamer, who then becomes a boxer. And I did some research into the real story because it was a real person, and it was absolutely fascinating, amazing. I'd wanted to tell the story of the 40 Elephants for a long time, a gang of all-female burglars and thieves who actually did operate in London at that time, and I just felt it was it was possible to bring those two true stories together,
just to fold them in,
and see what happened.
Can you tell me about the process of building this world? Because visually it's stunning. It's like really immersive, like the costumes and the sets.
Yeah, it was great because what happened was that we, as in the very talented crew, built 1880s London at an old brewery in Mortlake on the River Thames. And it's huge.
Yeah.
You know, you go there and think, I want these people to build my house for me. Because they just do an amazing job. And you walk into a time machine, basically. And because it's got real streets and real buildings with real windows and real doors, you can actually inhabit the place, and it really helps to make the thing feel real, so that when people are running through the streets, you can follow them. And that sort of once you've got that in your imagination, then that really helps you to continue the narrative, if you like.
Erin, the opening scene for Mary with the fake birth is just... it's an intense watch, but it's really fitting for your character. What was it like to film that?
It was so much fun. Like how often do you get to pretend to give birth? And
Never.
Never, unless anyway. No, it was so much fun. But I hadn't really had the discussion with the director until we got there about how realistic they wanted it to be. So it was on that day that I was like, oh, you really want me to go there? So that was a challenge in itself. But again, as you say, it was just another kind of window into these women and how committed they were to doing their work properly. And the fact that this was something that they did on repeat, like they had it down to a T. They knew exactly when this person would come in and this part of the operation would come into play. Like it was such a tight-knit part of their lives that that became the fun of being of treating it with that rigor. So it was a joy. It was a joy to kind of be a cog in the greater thing that is the 40 Elephants, and really understanding how they were so successful was because of each other. Like there's no way that Mary could have done that on her own. Like it was all about these integral moments. And passing the baton in that way, that was just really beautiful to play on that day.
Malachi, obviously your character is loosely based off of a real person. Just wondered how you prepared for that, and did you discover anything that you wanted to fold into that characterization?
Discover anything about the actual person?
Yeah, that you wanted to really make sure came through.
Okay. I mean, he's actually based on a real person.
Yeah.
You know, it's not loose at all. Like, there was a guy called Hezekiah Moscow that came from Jamaica to London to become a lion tamer and ended up becoming a boxer instead. As crazy as it sounds, it actually happened. But I guess what I couldn't ever find out was how he actually was as a person. You know, there was information about the things that took place in his life and some of the events that took place, but not about his character. You know, how he held himself, his mannerisms or whatever. So that was where artistic license came in. A lot of it was just really, you know, there's two photographs, one in particular, of this person. One of them is him topless in kind of a boxer pose. And the other one is him in this kind of garment. He just looks very regal. And both of these pictures were taken in the 1800s. Do you know what I mean? And so it's like, it's not often that you see a picture of a black man in that time anyway, and if you do, usually they're in a position of servitude. So just seeing that alone was like, okay, who is this person that was worth being photographed in other people's eyes, you know? And so I spent a lot of time just studying the pictures and trying to get a grasp of who this person was in his essence, and trying to channel that through myself. Yeah.
You've already established some epic dramas like Peaky Blinders and SAS Rogues, which, by the way, is like one of my favourite shows.
Good.
I'm so addicted to it. Love Paddy. How did the experience of working on this show compare?
Yeah, it's always great to work with very talented actors and crew and directors. And this was exceptional. You know, all our first choices said yes, which is quite unusual. Working with Stephen is always an absolute pleasure, and he always brings so much to the role that you didn't even know was there. So yeah, it feels good to be able to watch the end result and still get into it.
Yeah.
Which is what happened.
And off the back of that, what was it like to be reunited with Stephen Graham again?
Yeah, because of who he is, and because you know that not only is he a great actor, but when he's on the set, he leads the line and sets the standard, and you can just feel that everyone knows they have to bring their A game to the set because he's there. And so it's such a pleasure to, you know, whenever he's involved, it's always great.
Yeah. We already know that there's going to be a second series, so do you have that all mapped out, or how far do you think you can take the story?
Well, we can take the story a long, long way. That's all I can say. Yeah, I mean, I think people know there is a second series, but yeah, it's one of those things. We're on a journey, and I love the journey, so we want to keep it going.